one that would work out real well. So I appreciate you coming on here in short notice.
No, I'm glad to take the request, to be honest with you. It's always good to get a chance to shout from the rooftops about our project,
Oh, awesome. Well, it looks like we are recording, and what we'll probably, let me give you kind of a update on what we do here. So, because you may not be familiar with TRADERVERSE. So TRADERVERSE is my other gig. I know you've met me through Airdrop, which I've been fortunate enough to be able to do an AMA with you previously with a project called Airdrop. But TRADERVERSE is a soon-to-be-released social media network that'll have everything from AI-assisted training, machine learning, that sort of thing, and even streaming, as a content platform. So lots of things that work with TRADERVERSE. Yeah, it'll be really neat. And so what we do is Monday through Wednesday, we end up on Twitter Spaces, and that's always a good discussion. We have quite a few people in there. I think we had over 150 in there once this week. And then on Thursday, we go over to Telegram, which I know you're much more familiar with Telegram. And our Telegram doesn't have near as many people in it. And then our Discord server, it seems to where we have most people in here is when we do some live stock trading. We'll have some stock trading experts come in here and do that. So we still try to do these AMAs and whatnot over here just to bring in a little bit of the crypto people as well. But even if a whole lot of people, don't show up, it ends up with a good recording, and everything works out pretty well. So
that's good.
Yeah. So that's just a little bit about TRADERVERSE. I'm going to get into Voice Token a little more seriously because I want people to know kind of the value that you represent and the kind of the good intentions you have as your token. But before we do that, anybody that might be listening might not know who you are, might not know kind of person that you are. So you've told me before, but I'm going to get you to tell me again. Can you kind of introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit how you got started in crypto and eventually founding Voice Token?
Sure. So, just to, I suppose, to clarify from the outset is to clarify that I'm a qualified software engineer. So I'm a techie nerd at heart. But have been for over 25 years at this stage. So it's been a lot of lines of code have been written over that period of time. But I would have gotten into Bitcoin pretty early on. No, certainly not early enough to. I didn't invest enough to make myself retire on the profits, but I did pretty well. I got into Bitcoin when it was about $3,000, give or take, and that was probably back in 2017. And from that point on, I started buying the likes of Cardano and Litecoin and a few others that were floating around at the time as well. But I suppose I was kind of learning the ropes in terms of the crypto world. Like anybody else, I wasn't really sure what the future in this space would look like. And I certainly didn't, even at that time, have any plans to have my own project, and that kind of came later. But prior to buying Bitcoin, I had spent a good number of years, and still do even to this day, trading Forex and commodities. And I had written a lot of code to integrate with various exchanges and trade, and built trading bots to, identify trading patterns and place my trades for me while I slept and that type of thing. So it's always easier to make money while you're sleeping than trying to do it manually. So I did that as I said, for even up to now, I still do a lot of that, which is kind of an exciting thing to do. But so I always had that interest in the trading space. It was just a natural thing to me, albeit I approached it from the very much the technical side. I was always into automating, making a profit. That was the key thing.
So you were a technical trader to start out with. You were reading charts and looking for patterns and all that.
Yeah. So I learned the ropes, and I read all the books, Trading for Dummies and so on and so forth. And but you get to learn the patterns. You get to learn what types of algorithms work well together, and you start putting those together. And I did that manually for a while, but then it became clear to me that I didn't have the time to manually trade all day, and I remember when one of the first APIs came out to integrate with crypto, I built a trading bot, and the trading bot was always profitable with the exception of the commission. So the commission would make it a loss-making bot, and that frustrated me. So I knew my algorithms were correct, but the exchanges were taking all the goods out of it, you know. But
Right.
so, you know, that was always in the back of my mind. But I suppose in terms of voice token, you know, having monitored the crypto space for a long time from a trading perspective, but also from a technical perspective, you know, I was the former head of blockchain for one of Ireland's largest tech research centres for a period of time. And through that role, I would have met with a lot of companies, both in Ireland and internationally, and discussed their blockchain requirements. Now, their blockchain requirements didn't always fit with the crypto space, okay? But in some cases it did. You know, if they were creating their own blockchain, or if they had a requirement, they may create their own token and have some sort of a reward system on that, depending on
Sure.
what industry they were in and so on. So again, I approached, I suppose, blockchain from the technical, but from the industrial side of things, commercially. I wasn't really doing a lot of the crypto stuff in that particular role. But all of those, I suppose, experiences kind of combined. And just to give a little bit of, I suppose, background on me personally, I went through, you know, as probably maybe a lot of people have done in their life, I went through kind of a financial crisis where I nearly lost it all, you know, and was, you know, within days or even weeks of losing my home, and trying to figure out how I'd explain that to my wife and kids. So the
Well,
idea
that's
of
what you know, I've done this AMA with you before and heard you say a little bit about on that. So I want you to, I feel like we have to kind of talk about that a little bit, and that
sure, yeah.
you were, like you said, within weeks or even days
Yeah,
of being homeless
yeah,
yourself.
what actually happened was, you know, when there was a property boom in Ireland, like the Celtic Tiger era is what it was called, but you know, it smashed and crashed and burned, as did the property market all over the world at that time, back in 06, 07, 08. But I had been buying properties prior to that, and the whole thing came, you know, the house of cards came crumbling down on me. And as a result of that, you know, I kind of had to sell as much as I could to try and offset those debts. I ended up being, you know, I was officially bankrupted in the High Court in Ireland, and you know, but thankfully through a good solicitor, I managed to keep the family home. You know,
So let me stop you right there. So you know, the worldwide economy kind of collapsed there, particularly in
sure,
'08. And, you know, you had to like sell some properties that you probably would have rather not. You had a judge
everything,
say,
yeah, all the
yeah,
property sold, everything, but I managed to keep the family home, and I think one of the key reasons why I was allowed to do that, even though, you know, all of the banks wanted to take it, and they said in no uncertain terms that they were going to take it, but you know, I'm married, I have 6 kids, 5 of them living in this home here with me, and you know, the judge took pity on me, and that's the reality of it. The judge said, you know, we're not putting, you know, 5 kids on the street. And you know, if I had been married or single, you know, with one child, I probably would have been out in the street. But it kind of played in my favor, I think. And you know, I'm only speculating the reasons behind why I was
sure.
allowed to keep home. But
But I mean,
I think, you know,
I'm thinking about, you know, from your standpoint, who went on to create this voice token that is, you know, aiming to, you know, help homeless. You had that had to have, you know, made an impression on you so strongly that you must have said, you know, I almost was homeless myself. I want to be able to create something to help people
well,
in these type of scenarios.
well, that's the thing, and when I was told that I was going to be allowed to stay in the house, you know, I remember I cried that day. I cried a lot that day. You know, there
Sure.
were happy tears. You know, but
Yeah.
I remember kind of saying to myself, I don't know the exact wording now, but it was along the lines of, you know, if I ever get out the far side of this, you know, if I ever get back on my feet financially, whenever that is and however that might look like, I'm going to do something to help the underprivileged, the people that have been kicked out of their homes, the people that are living on the street, the people that can't feed themselves or put clothes on their children's backs, you know. But I didn't know how I was going to do it. I certainly didn't think at that point that I would be creating a cryptocurrency and a blockchain and all of that in this space. It
So were
wasn't.
you to the point where you started like doing internet searches of like, okay, next week I may be, you know, needing charity. I may be needing assistance. Were you to the point of kind of looking through where you would go, what you would do, how you would
Well,
feed the
well,
family?
this is the thing. Like, you know, obviously, you know, my parents and my brothers, I kind of, you go to family first and friends, but because again, you know, there was such a large cohort of us, 5 children and a wife and a husband, it's very hard to find someone to take in 7 people.
Sure.
And we're kind of thinking, okay, I know they would take us in, but it would be a very strange thing for them to do. And you certainly don't want a situation where you're splitting up the children, where you've got
Yeah,
one
of
child in this
course.
house, two over in that house. And so the whole thing, to be honest, I didn't know what we were going to do if the worst had come to the worst. I didn't really know. I was looking at do we buy kind of a camper van or borrow money from a brother or something to get a camper van and live in that. I just didn't know what the plan was. But I certainly would have gone down the road of registering for assistance through the Irish government in terms of a weekly wage and having some sort of financial capacity that way. So at least I'd be
Well, let
able
me
to
ask
feed somebody.
about professionally. So before, you had found yourself in this situation, had
Yeah,
you obviously are very accomplished software wise. Was a lot of these
yeah.
accomplishments prior to this as well? I mean, were you a
And
successful
I
person and then
think
found yourself in a bad situation?
yeah, I was working for a software company and I had a pretty good job and I left that job literally on a moment's notice. I handed in I drove into work on a particular morning and I wasn't married that long at the time actually. And I gave my boss my 1 month's notice and I hadn't even discussed it with my wife at the time. So she was a little bit shocked to find out when I came home that day that I had handed in my notice for this great job that I had been in for a good number of years. And I gave up that job to go into property. So I had kind of I had and that was an IT job, but I kind of left the IT world to go into property because I had visions that I was going to be, a multi-millionaire property magnate. That was the plan,
Sure.
and at the time banks were giving out money, hand over fist, so it was easy to get
Right.
a mortgage. So I got many mortgages, and that was the thing, and I owed the bank, a lot of money, and the
Right.
whole thing
Right.
crashed.
Right.
The whole thing crashed. So at that point, I wasn't working in IT. The whole property, market had crashed, and that's where I was getting my money from because I used to rent out the properties that I had bought, and there was an income from that. But that all stopped. The properties were repossessed, and the whole thing just fell apart. And obviously the stress of that, you don't tend to think straight, but I would always have been a pretty decent self-starter. I knew that at some point in the future I was going to be okay. I just didn't know how long it would take.
Well,
Whether that would be setting up a
this
business
is
or going to get a job somewhere.
right. Well, this is just mind blowing to me because what it said, I think a lot of times we put in our heads wrongly of who a homeless person is or who a person that
Sure.
is facing homelessness is. And here your story kind of tells me that, you can be on top of your game. You were, thinking you were going to be the next, like you said, property extraordinaire. And,
Yes.
the walls kind of came crumbling down. So we don't necessarily know who is, the profile of somebody that could be homeless or find themselves needing a homeless charity. And I think your story really tells that.
The thing is, recently enough, actually, since setting up the Voice Token project to help homeless people and disadvantaged people, we launched this on the 1st of November, but obviously it was years in the making behind the scenes in terms of me formulating the plan. Like choosing to donate to homeless charities is just one aspect of the project. But the project isn't really a project if that's all you're doing. So from a technical perspective and from a commercial perspective, I had to plan for the last year or two what we were actually going to be. And the donations would be the upside of what we were going to be. So we
Sure.
had to define our tech roadmap. We had to do our corporate governance in terms of what the company was going to be and who was going to be in the company with me. I couldn't do this all on my own. So that was, I spent a year or two putting all of that together in terms of getting the right team, discussing it with the right skilled people who I knew could bring something to the table. And I wasn't interested in taking on an 18-year-old spotty teenager. I wanted people who had been down the block a few times, that they had their companies, they had run companies before who had commercial experience both internationally and nationally. I wanted people who could really up the level of this project, and I wanted to up it above what other people were doing because there's thousands of projects out there, but I didn't want to be one of these thousand projects. I wanted to be something completely different. So that's what I started planning on doing. And look, we are where we are now, and it's exciting, but geez, it's been tough. It's been tough.
Sure. I mean, and I think that happens with a lot of people that make a token or any kind of cryptocurrency. Is it ends up being very tough, particularly to get traction, even if you have a just and good utility that you're trying to have here. And that's part of why you go out and you do AMAs like this, to get a lot of eyes and whatnot on the project. So
Yeah,
we've went over a lot of kind of what your history is and kind of maybe what your motivations were to be able
sure.
to start something like this. So you knew you had this software backing, you knew you had kind of a development, ability. Is that, and you had all this near homelessness experience. Is that kind of your first thoughts, is, well, I could build a cryptocurrency that could then give donations to charity for homelessness? Was that the first kind of thought? And if that was your first thought, what
Well,
did you first do to
I'll
put
tell you
that,
what the
get that
first
ball
thought
rolling?
was. Actually. The first thought actually was not that it wasn't. I didn't sit down and say, today is the day I come up with an idea to donate to homeless. What actually happened, even though at the back of my mind I always knew I was going to do something for the homeless at some point in my life, the first thought was I had invested in a cryptocurrency that got rug pulled. And it boiled my blood. Okay. So I sat down and I was chatting with a friend of mine and I said, this is crazy. I said, there's too many scams out there. The whole industry is being completely tarnished. And mainstream media are mocking the industry because of the large amount of scamming that's going on. Now, there's a lot of genuine stuff going on, but it's been overshadowed by the scam. So my first thought was, if I did this, what would it look like? It certainly would not be a scam. So what would I do to clean up the image of this industry? And the one thing is, coming from my background in tech, you know, I'm more concerned about blockchain technology than I am about cryptocurrency. Okay, and there is a very definitive difference between the two. So again, with my tech background, I'm more concerned about taking this project and bringing companies, industries, and commercializing it in that space. Cryptocurrency will be a part of it, but it is not the core driver for what I want to do technically. I do want to clean up the crypto space in terms of having, we will be building our own blockchain called VOYCE chain. We'll be having all of the elements that you currently see in the crypto space in there. But I just want to do it right, what I feel is right, and that all spawned from being rug pulled, So as the idea evolved in my head, then I went, this is actually probably the right project to help the homeless. And so it kind of worked that way. That was my first thought, was let's build a project. And then as it was evolving and formulating the plan, I realized this was probably the right one to give the donations from then. So that's how it
Yeah,
evolved in terms of.
well, that makes sense. Is that you kind of all, it's amazing how something like this is just a summation of all of our experiences. And you are yet another token founder. I've talked to so many of them that were inspired by a rug pull. If there's anything good out of a major rug pull, almost every one of them, out of the ashes of those rug pulls comes a legit
Sure.
project by somebody that says, I want to put something good into the space. Unfortunately, there's a
Yeah.
lot of rug pulls out there, and a
There
lot of
is, and
stories like that.
even before you buy cryptocurrencies, just even in the marketing side of it, like there's not a day goes by where there isn't someone contacts me on Telegram and tries to scam me. you know it happens every single day, and it's bizarre, and you have people imitating other people. I've had people imitating me, going to my colleagues on Telegram and emailing them saying, any chance you can send me 4 or 5 BNB, and I'll pay you back tomorrow, type
Jeez.
thing, as if they were me. And it's just so frustrating. So like we've got to do something to clean this up, and I've always wanted to be an extremely genuine project, but I didn't want to have one core focus within the project, whether it be an NFT marketplace, or whether it would be a gaming, or whether it would be a metaverse of some type. Or I didn't just want to have one string to the bow. I wanted to create an entire ecosystem. So we would have the cryptocurrency, we would have obviously the tokenomics that would allow donations. We would have the NFT marketplace, which we call Voice Market. We would have the wallet, which we call Voice Wallet. We're putting out a technology called Voice Pay, which again will just allow you to spend your voice tokens at any retail store in the world. Using your your account debit card. We wanted the voice exchange where people could trade all of the stable and altcoins on it. But again, what would be the difference between our exchange and other exchanges? We wanted to have specifically the lowest rate of commission for transaction on that exchange, beating all of the big players. And again, that goes back to the original idea behind blockchain technology and the transfer of digital assets or Bitcoin from one person to another was meant to remove the middleman, that middleman who takes all the fees. And it was meant to be free and painless, but greed comes in and everybody wants a cut of something. So again, the exchange that we want to put together I want the fees to be so low that it's negligible, that it should not interfere with the reason you're transferring in the first place. Like
For sure.
Ethereum is an amazing project, but the fees are just ridiculous.
Oh,
And
the fees
so,
will bring anybody to their knees.
of course, so that doesn't work. That doesn't work across the board. If you want it to be the mainstream go-to project, companies aren't going to use that for the transfer of funds for goods and services because it's too expensive. So who's going to step up to the plate? And I'm hoping that VoiceChain can start that process of creating the ecosystem, giving you the blockchain, and Voice Token, by the way, will probably be the first of a number of cryptocurrencies that we're going to create. And they'll all have their own little angle as well in the future. Like Voice Token has a 9% tax in the tokenomics, 4% goes to charity, 3% to the liquidity pool, and 2% for marketing and tech dev. But if we choose to create, as an example, Voice Coin, we may have no tax on that. And that would be the one that we'll probably roll out to industry for use of the blockchain for goods and services. So if you're tracking, and again this goes back to my previous experience, if you're tracking the shipment of food from a farm to the shelf in Walmarts, as an example, and you have to ensure that chicken is at 30 degrees for the entirety of its lifespan, or whatever temperature needs to be stored at. Having all of that information and transparency and transactional and data on a blockchain where the providers or the logistics companies who are doing the transfers in their trucks get paid based on the service being actually correct. So if the chicken drops below a certain price or goes above or temperature or goes above a certain temperature, well then, the pay rate at which that logistics company gets paid for their services may be altered on the blockchain through the smart contract. And again, those transactions and payments for those goods and services will be automated between companies. That's where I think, the real money and the real value is going to come in blockchain in the future.
Sure. I can see that vision. So you've got a lot of things that you just mentioned here: Voice Vote, Voice Wallet, your Voice Chain, Voice Market. I want to go into some of these a little bit, and I want to start with Voice Vote, which is the first one that you mentioned on your ecosystem in your white paper, is Voice Vote. So that idea is the idea of almost like a DAO, where you would vote on what charity should receive donations. So how's that coming along as far as development for it? And how's your community's response been to that idea of Voice Vote?
So far, the community have really embraced it. And I love that fact. I love the fact that the decision of where the money goes doesn't lie with me.
Sure.
I have enough things to think about it. So, and I don't need the pressure of having to just make those decisions every month, when the money is donated. So what we did was we rolled out voicevote.com, and right now, voicevote.com only allows you to do the nominations. So anyone, whether you're a voice token holder or not, can nominate a global charity to have money donated to them. Okay. Voice vote in terms of the voting for those nominations. So as a good example, I think in November there were 5 charities nominated, and what we did was we donated, because we had only just started, we donated $1,000 to the first 3 charities. So the community voted and chose and decided who those votes would go to. Now we held that vote as a poll inside the Telegram group because we didn't have the Voice Vote Wallet Connect fixed or developed at that point. It is now fully developed. and waiting to go live. Okay, so we have probably less than a day's worth of testing to complete on that before that
So
happens.
January, it will be released
Oh,
in this month?
listen, it probably should have been live about a week ago, to be honest with you, but there's just been so much going on that the problem is finding the time to get that last few hours out of the way. So
Oh,
it
sure.
it will absolutely be live in January. That's 100% guaranteed.
So
So
the
yeah,
January donation, the charity donation, or maybe I should say the February donation, can be voted on in January, and it'll be done
absolutely.
with voice vote to determine which charity gets
100%.
donated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, so that'll be a case of connecting your wallet, and it will check, you have to be a voice token holder. And if you own voice token, you will be allowed to vote. So that's as I said. Look, I've already tested it, the beta version. It's almost there. Just a couple of slight little more design tweaks than anything else. And I'm happy to roll that out. So in the next week or so, that certainly could be there and be live. And whichever charities are nominated in January, the votes will take place through that technology, which is great. So that's good to
Man, I
go.
love that. I love the power that you're giving to your holders there, because many of your holders are probably passionate about homelessness or passionate about the charity, but to be able to kind of direct where the charity, where these funds go to, that's amazing. And I think a great thing. So voice vote, that's one of your first things of your ecosystem that will roll out. And literally it sounds like it's, any moment now type of a timetable. But the next thing you have that you want to roll out is your voice wallet. Now, there's a lot of wallets out there. I could pick up a
Sure.
MetaMask or a Trust Wallet or whatever. Let me know about Voice Wallet. What made you want to build it, and how does it fit?
Well, the thing about it is, we actually had that down as our second one on our white paper, but we've moved that back.
Oh, okay.
Voice Market is actually number two now. The NFT marketplace is second. The reason we chose to move it back, and I suppose the reason we're choosing to build it at all when there's a number of wallets out there, is because again it goes into having an entire ecosystem. I'm a firm believer that if we're serious about this as an entire ecosystem, we can't then be dependent on a third party for a part of it. So we,
Sure.
we want to we want to give all of the modules that you will need, and they'll all be interconnected. And but again, any transactions or transfers through that wallet will generate a small fee. And again, that all goes to charity. So that's the beauty of that. You using Trust Wallet or MetaMask or whatever. Of course, I use both of those right now. Absolutely. And is there a need for it? There's actually not a need for Voice Wallet at all, and I don't mind saying that. And I don't expect a major rush of people to go and use Voice Wallet. But I want it
Sure.
there as an option. I certainly want it there as an option. But we moved it back because, again, we don't expect a rush of 1 million people downloading Voice Wallet. And it's also not a huge revenue generating part of the ecosystem. It's just kind of a nice to have add on.
It's
Again,
sure. But you moved it in lieu of Voice Market, it sounds like. And
yeah.
that one definitely does have a little bit more, kind of moves the needle a little bit more for people as far as utility, and maybe they might use it. Tell me about Voice Market. What's it, what's its roadmap, and how do you see it fitting in?
Sure. So Voice Market. Look again. You look online right now. There's probably 1,000 marketplaces in development. There's so many. It's like every project is bringing a marketplace to the fore. And how do we stick out as being something different? And again, this goes back to the homeless aspect. So we partnered with a charity in Australia called MAD, which is Musicians Making a Difference, MMAD. And they've been doing some great work with, again, underprivileged children who are living on the streets, and helping them through therapy of music. Now, one prime example of one of the gentlemen that they helped is a guy who goes by the stage name of D Minor. And D Minor ended up on Australia's Got Talent, and I think he got to the final or the semi-final. I think it was the final he got to, and he released a song called "Concrete Pillow," which I think is a very apt title considering he lived on the street.
Sure.
And he's built up a huge social media following, and his song has been streamed over 1 million times or many more, whatnot, and he's become somewhat of a celebrity. So Mad reached out to us and asked us would we be interested in doing some things with them. And at the time, obviously, we've been putting together this NFT marketplace, so it made sense to open up the marketplace. That not only could people obviously create and mint and sell and trade their NFTs, but we wanted to have a focus where homeless talent would be recognized on the marketplace. So, as an example, D Minor, and other homeless people that have talent. And I'll give you a good example of this actually. In October, I took a job, which was a 6-month contract with one of Ireland's largest homeless organisations called Cork Simon. I'm currently there now. So the reason I took that job, it was a technical job, but the reason I took the job was I really wanted to understand, the real ground floor of what's happening on the street,
Sure.
and how people are actually helping the homeless in terms of an organization and how it works. So obviously it fit in very much with what I'm doing with Voice Token, and it gave me that, I suppose, visibility that I wouldn't have had before. I now see how they're actually helped on a day-to-day basis, and in through that I've gotten to meet quite a few homeless people. And the amount of talent that a lot of these people have is absolutely phenomenal. Looking at a video of one particular guy who draws art, and honestly, the art is phenomenally good. And I'm thinking, like, these people need, not only do they need a voice, hence the name Voice Token, but they need
Sure.
an outlet, somewhere that they can put this, be recognized, but also actually earn from that. And I think that's where, Voice Market really has evolved from that idea of giving them a marketplace. But obviously we'll open up to anybody who wants to use it. It won't be just for homeless talent, but certainly there's going to be an area which is going to be dedicated to them. And again, any transactional fees that come through that will go back towards helping the homeless as well. So on a wider scale. So I suppose that's the real idea, and the differentiator between what we'll be doing. There'll be art, there'll be
Sure.
music.
So let me ask a few questions about Voice Market. So, from what I understand, on Voice Market, there may be some artwork or maybe music or something like that in the form of an NFT that might be made by, homeless. And
Yes.
obviously, they can be very talented, and maybe they just don't have the, like you said, voice to be able to get that out. Might you use, I'm trying to think where you might be able to find talent for that. And I know there's a lot of, almost every city might have a program that has, help people get back to work, get back on their feet, try to bring in their own income. To me,
Yes.
if you can advertise to those, and maybe advertise is the wrong word, but if you can get your message out to those type of programs to say, hey, here's something you could do also as a, call it a side hustle or a main hustle. If you're homeless, maybe there's not really a side hustle, but here's something that you could do. Is that, how are you looking to basically get the word out to the homeless who may not have as much communication as me or you may have? How are you looking to get the word out that this is a possibility
You,
for
you,
them?
you've actually hit the nail exactly on the head. That's pretty much exactly what we have been doing. So we've been choosing different cities, Boston, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and then different countries, and trying to identify who are the key organizations within those regions. And we've actually been reaching out to them. We've been talking with them, and explaining what it is we're doing. Now, not all of them have, I suppose, the experience to get it straight away. And they may not all be in the crypto space. They may not understand what an NFT is. So there takes a little bit of a learning curve in a lot of the conversations we've been having. But it's been very much a case of they all get the fact that if they do get involved, it will absolutely benefit the people that they're helping within their organization. So yeah, so that's really, yeah, you've nailed it. That's exactly what we've been doing, and to be honest, the feedback has been quite positive. There's a nervousness about it from their perspective, because they may not understand the space, but there's also an excitement there. And again, going back to that partnership with Mad, the kind of people that they've got access to and the talent that they have, we certainly expect to see some of that up on the NFT marketplace. And they've been shouting from the rooftops. And Mad are supported by Universal Music and Sony Music. Some of the biggest artists in the world are obviously with those two organizations. So we're shouting and mingling in amongst the right kind of people as well. So which is great.
Do you do you ever get the feeling that, and this is not a knock what I'm about to say, but that you're almost too
No, no.
early, and that's good that you can have time to build. But here you are, something that I think, this is just my own personal biased opinion, that NFTs will be as common as a website at some point, where, you won't even have to explain what an NFT is to somebody at some point. But right now, when you're talking to these homeless charities, I don't know how many minutes you're having to explain it, but my guess is there's a conversation that's having to happen all the time about this is even what this technology is. So in that case,
Exactly.
do you feel like you are so early at this that you're having to do more education than implementation?
I completely agree with that statement. The world, look, when you consider 10% of the world's population have traded cryptocurrencies at some point, that means 90% haven't. And out of the 90%, and I'm only guessing here in terms of the numbers out of the 90%, but I reckon at least 3/4 of that 90% have no idea what's going on in this space. And the other 25% may have looked at it and have some understanding, but have just never gone ahead and traded. So there's a huge percentage of people who just don't get it, who don't understand it. And a good example, when it's always the kind of the barometer test when you talk to maybe someone of an older generation like my father or my mother, and you say we're putting together an NFT marketplace, and they say kind of, excuse me, what the hell is that?
Right.
But a lot of people are in that. Look, some of my best friends, who I discuss this with regularly, I had to explain to them what an NFT was, and what an NFT could be in the future. Like for me, and the analogy that I always use, again, because pre-COVID, before the world went into lockdown, I used to travel to a lot of conferences and discuss blockchain technology. And I used to do it in a layman's terms. I'd have to explain to people what it was about, and a lot of these people would not have been technical at all. So, what's happening now with an NFT marketplace, as far as I'm concerned, when I'm explaining it to someone new, they'll ask me what the hell is that, and I'll say, look, are you familiar with Amazon? They'll say, I am, or eBay. You can go online and you can buy a physical product and it'll be delivered to you, and you own the product.
Right.
NFT marketplace is an online shop for digital assets, but you're buying and selling it with cryptocurrency, not fiat currency. So that's the first kind of statement that I make to them. And then they go, now they have some premise as to what it is. They now know it's a shop where you can trade, but you have to trade using cryptocurrency.
So for an NFT marketplace, there's already OpenSea and that sort of thing, and it mainly involves ETH. I know, so Voice Token, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, it's on the BSC chain. It's on the Binance chain.
Right.
And I'm sure you chose to do that because of low fees and things like that. But for your NFT marketplace, will it only be, NFTs on the Binance, the BSC, or might it be on other chains?
We're hoping to support a couple of chains, and obviously at some point in the future, once Voice Chain is ready, that will be added to the list as well. So, the plan is, again, give options. I'm not a fan of pigeonholing people into one option and that's it, because if it's one option, it's not an option. And so,
no, that's a good move.
Yeah. So the idea is to give people choice and leave them decide. Obviously, with Ethereum, the cost might be a little bit more, but that's their choice. So certainly, you've got the Polygons of the world and Ethereum and Binance. The plan is to give them a choice. Now, we haven't actually defined the official chains that are going to be launched in the beta version at the end of March at this stage, but I expect that we'll make that decision probably in the next week or so as well. So, but it's exciting. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background. Like we have all our designs ready. The site itself is actually functional but not available to the public at this stage. So we've done all that work. We're ready to kind of do those connections now to the various blockchains that we choose to put them in place. And but if you go to voicemarket.com right now, you can sign up for the early access program. And the idea behind that is that maybe a week before we officially launch to the public, anyone on the early access program will actually get access to the NFTs. So you can almost get first dibs at what's available.
No, I think that sounds great. So one of the things you said, I said, of all the different chains that could be on with your Voice Market, and you talked about Ethereum and BSC or Polygon or whatever, but you also said, your own chain. And you said that a few times now about Voice Chain. Yes. Explain to me why you would want Voice Chain, first of all, and then maybe what advantages, which may be the same answer, what advantages might that give to your ecosystem to have its own chain?
Well, again, the key reason behind that is to allow us in the future, once we're ready, and I suppose we have both the financial and people resources to do it, is to open it up to industry. We want industry using Voice Chain as the go-to blockchain for their smart contracts. That is the key reason that Voice Chain would exist. But because it's going to exist, it allows us to have an NFT marketplace piggyback on it. It allows us to allow other genuine charitable tokens to launch on it, as we currently do with Binance. So there'll be all those other elements which are bonuses to having it. But certainly the key reason was to allow us to have industry deploy their smart contracts on a blockchain without having their own chain.
I see. I see. So yeah, a few different advantages to be able to do that. And then, you would have your own chain, which gives you a lot more control, I'm sure, over what goes on
Yeah.
that chain than what you would have on any other chain. So, okay, one last thing that you've got that I think is highly ambitious, and that's voice pay. And now on your white paper, you don't even expect this to be rolled out until 2023, next year. But this is quite a bit of ways down the road. But what is voice pay, and kind of tell us how it'll fit in?
Sure. So voice pay isn't necessarily a new concept. Okay, it's the idea of being able to spend, using, let's say, a Visa card or a Mastercard, to be able to spend your cryptocurrency. Like a number of years ago, I was filling my car with fuel and paying for it with Bitcoin, with my Bitcoin card. I'd go to the ATM and I'd withdraw 200 euros or 500 euros, and it was coming out of my Bitcoin account instantaneously. So again, that's not a new technology. In fact, even though it's not new, it's still not widely adopted by people. But I think if people are to take cryptocurrency seriously, we need to have the ability of utility, and that's ultimate utility, to be able to walk into a shop, buy a bottle of Coke, and pay for it in voice token. That to me is ultimate utility. That allows people to spend their money. And the key thing, actually, one of the things that an awful lot of people say to me, and I'm meeting people, a lot at the moment, that are asking me about voice token. They're asking me to explain it to them, and a lot of these people are new to the space. So they say, okay, so I can put my money in, but how do I get it out? That's always the
Great
question.
question.
How do I get out my money? How do I spend it? And you give them the example. Well, look, you can transfer your money to Binance from your wallet, and you can withdraw to your
Sure.
bank or your card, or you give them those examples. But I kind of want to go a step further and say, well, maybe you don't need to necessarily withdraw it. You can if you want to. But how would you just walk into a shop and spend it? And they're thinking, well, that's just as good, if not better. So that's the idea behind voice pay, is the ultimate utility and the ultimate, I suppose, trust in being able to access your funds and spend your funds when you so choose to do.
So voice pay would be an ability to be able to spend your funds, and would it be limited to voice token, or would you allow other cryptos to be spent with voice pay?
Right now, we'll start obviously with voice token, but I don't see any reason why we wouldn't allow others to piggyback on the technology later. We can open that up through APIs for other projects to utilize it as well. But again, that would be after we look after our own token first.
And that makes perfect sense. Obviously, you're going to look after your own token first, but I know that there's people that own, a big pile of Bitcoin or a big pile of Ethereum, and rather than convert to voice token first, they would probably like that ability to be able to spend that through voice pay as well. So
There's no
this is
reason.
quite an ecosystem.
Yes. It's
And what?
certainly
Yeah,
certainly
go ahead.
I might say, but again, I think that goes back to just, I suppose, my nature. It's kind of go big or home, and all of these things that we're talking about can absolutely be done technically. So if they can be done technically and it makes sense to do it, and encapsulate it all in one entire environment, which is branded through the voice ecosystem, for me, that's the way to do it. I never wanted to be a token that just did one small thing and we're over in the corner, and hopefully somebody shines a light on us, and hopefully we go 10x. And I wanted to be the entire ecosystem with the blockchain. And again, you look at Coin Market Cap and look at all of the projects that have their own blockchain. The majority of them are multi-billion-dollar market caps.
That's
There's
right.
a reason why. There's a reason why that is. It's because that blockchain allows you to do so much more, and that's where we want to be. That's where we want to head to. I don't know how long it'll take to get there, but I know we will get there, and that's the key
Well,
thing.
that's what I was going to ask about. You say you don't know how long it'll take to get there. So everything you have is really ambitious on here, and it will take a while to build all this. All the while, you're trying to build a community. You're trying to get people to follow you, around as you do things. So that's what
Sure.
I was going to ask is, if it takes a long time to build the community while all the while you are building the products, the ecosystem, um, how long? I mean, are you just the type of person that just says, I'm going to build this And if you build it, they will come. And I'm going to build this no matter what. In other words, are you saying you're building this regardless of community adoption, at least initially?
Yeah, absolutely. We've always said from day one that we never wanted a pump and dump in terms of the price of the token, nor in terms of the numbers in the community. Okay, I had no interest in that. I'm far more concerned about building this organically, building it naturally. And if you look at the numbers in our Telegram group, it's in and around the 2,000 mark. And people have said to me, "My God, with the tech roadmap you have, you should have 20,000 people in there." I'm saying, I know
Sure.
we should. But that will happen, and you can see people coming in, and look, for every 10 that come in, 2 leave, and that's okay. People are allowed to come and go as they so choose. But my real belief is that I don't honestly mind whether we have 2,000 or 20,000 in the group, because I know behind the scenes with the team that we have and what we're doing, as you mentioned, we're just going to build it anyway. And people will see it eventually. And I don't wake up in the mornings going, "Oh my God, did the price go up 5 or 10% today, or did it go down 5 or 10? Did we lose wallet holders? Did we get wallet holders?" Yes, I want obviously the positives. I want the wallet holder numbers to go up. I want the price to go up, but it doesn't define how we go about our day chores, in terms of building what we're building. We're going to build it. We absolutely know eventually people will sit up and take notice. And that's why I keep using the phrase, we don't know how long that will take. We have a fair idea and a fairly good understanding of how long the technology is going to take to build. We don't know how long it will take people to realize what we're actually about and how we're doing
Well,
it.
that's what I wanted you to answer with, and I'm so glad that you continue to do AMAs and things like that, like this, where people can hear that, because I think as people do their own due diligence, as people do their own research, they'll look at the Telegram numbers, they'll look at the chart, they'll look at market cap and things like that, and they might think that a project is not serious just by those objective numbers that have nothing to do with whether building is occurring. And so that's
Sure.
why I'm so glad that you do these AMAs and things like that. So you can say, like, nope, we're still here. We're still building. We believe that we are in a building phase of, of
Yes.
growth, and not necessarily a numbers growth as far as investors yet. Because if you build, eventually that will happen. I've always said you need 3 things to make a successful project. You need a good team, you need a good community, and then you need a good project premise. All in all, the project has to be
Yes.
good. And you can't have 2 of the 3. You have to have all 3. But for
Sure.
you, you're making sure that the team and the project is taken care of, and doing all these will lead to that community part being coming through.
Absolutely. I have a very strong belief in that. I think if we were to focus on building a community, then you drop the ball on the rest of the stuff. It doesn't mean that I'm not concerned about it, or I don't look at the numbers. I do look at the numbers, but it doesn't cost me a thought, if the numbers are up or down. It really doesn't, because I know that if you build a strong technology base and you have, as you mentioned, a strong premise for the overall project, those eventually do lead to where you want to get in terms of the community numbers anyway. A good example of that actually is, and I've said this in previous AMAs, both with yourself and other channels that I would have done AMAs with over the past few months. I'm all about the commercial partnerships. I have,
Sure.
from day one, I've been looking out, who can we partner with, who are the right people that we need to be, holding hands with, who do we get into bed with, who can we rub shoulders with, and that's going to help our project, and obviously have a mutual benefit for them as well. And MAD obviously in Australia was a natural partnership because of what they do, and what they can bring to the table for us as well, and vice versa. But this week alone, I've been contacted by one, not so much in terms of a partnership, but I was contacted by a large venture firm in New York. And one of the statements in the email, and again, this is just to reiterate my thought process and my belief process, and don't worry about the numbers that come later, was that they had looked at our project, they were blown away by what we were doing, but one of the statements was that we were wildly undervalued in terms of our market cap, considering what our project was. And I absolutely agree with that statement, but I don't cry myself to sleep at night about it. I know we're undervalued, and I wish our market cap, which is currently still below 1 million, I wish it was at 100 million. But I
Sure.
know someday we will be, and that's the thing. And secondly, I was also contacted by another gentleman, and this, I can't give you the names as of yet, because it's still in negotiation, but the verbal deal has been done. I'll put it that way. But we've a new token, which again is in the kind of the good vibe space, where underprivileged are going to be helped. and they have a massive backing and are going to be, I believe, a very big player in the charity crypto space. And they want to give Voice token as rewards, and that to me is another milestone for us. Even though I hadn't set out looking for that, again, you look at all of the tokens that give rewards. Most will give rewards in their own token, or maybe in BNB or in BSUSD, or but Voice token now kind of fits into that realm again. We are now going to be a token that's going to be rewarded to people other than within our own community, which is amazing. That builds our price, it builds our wallet numbers, it does all those things. So again, these people are reaching out to us. They can see the value in what we're doing, both morally, technically, commercially, and they're putting two and two together and realizing that it makes sense to be in bed with us.
So you've got yourself, obviously, I've seen, you're kind of up front and center on all these AMAs and whatnot, but you're not working alone. I know you have at least two other, because your website says, it's three
Sure.
Irish businessmen. I don't remember what the term was. Irish entrepreneurs. How big is your team? How many are you working with?
So just to give you an idea, so there's myself, there's Paul Clancy and Brendan O'Regan. We were the core three team. They were actually the two guys that I brought to the table in terms of a core team that we had. And we have a graphic designer. We have community moderators and whatnot working behind the scenes with us as well. In terms of the development, we have about 4 or 5 contractors working in different aspects of what we're doing. We don't have any employees in terms of company employees. It's all contracted at this stage. I've no doubt that at some point we'll cross that line back into having in-house employees, but for now it doesn't make any financial sense to do that, So I suppose we're looking at about a 10-man team in total that are active every day on the project.
Amazing. I want to cover one quick thing before we kind of say our goodbyes, and that's I want to have a burning token or burning coin discussion. In your white paper, you talk about how you don't really agree with the logic of burning tokens just to drive the price up. Where'd you come up with this? Is this a life experience? And by the way, I agree with you, but I want to hear kind of you say it.
It's not so much life experience. It just never made sense to me. Why would, and again, like you read about tokens saying, okay, we're going to launch next week. We're going to launch with, let's say 100 million tokens, but we're going to burn 50 million straight away. Why?
Why not just put 50 million in the first place, right?
What are you trying to do, So, to me, it just didn't make sense. And if you keep burning a token over and over based on a percentage of a transaction, my personal belief is at some point you're going to become obsolete. You're going to become defunct. It can't sustain. It cannot sustain in terms of longevity. Now, certain projects don't care about longevity. They only care about making a major pump and dump in the first week or the first 3 months or 6 months. And they don't give a damn about being around in 10 years' time. And they probably know that they won't be around in 10 years' time. So therefore, burning is fine. But that's not what we want to do. My view was never short term. My view is we want to be one of the most stable coins on the market in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. We want to be the coin that everyone talks about, that everyone is spending, that everyone is utilizing. And you can't burn forever if that's what you want to be. So that was my basic logic.
I've heard your answer on that before, and I just wanted to give you a chance to be able to say it again. My thought on burning is that, for just basic economics, you've got supply and demand. And I think a lot of tokens only are looking at the supply side of that equation, and they're burning to take care, artificially alter that supply side of it. But the demand part of it is always so important. You've got to have a reason for people to even want your currency. And I felt like that part in your white paper at least kind of underlined that you understand that you have to create a demand for your token, and not, that you haven't just forgotten about the demand, that you're not just paying attention to the supply side.
Sure. No, I completely agree. It goes back to utility. What's the purpose? In fact, a good friend of mine texted me a message earlier today, and he's not an advocate for cryptocurrencies at all, and has never bought cryptocurrencies. And he keeps sending me articles about how Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme and pyramid scheme and all these kinds of things, and look, leave him off. That's fine, but I can't remember the last time a government tried to tax a Ponzi scheme, so the thing about it is, look, if a token doesn't have utility, and I'm not talking about a kind of a fad utility. It needs to have utility that will make it usable in everyday life, not just buying a monkey NFT. You know what I mean? Let's be realistic.
Right, right.
How many people will? How big is your market if that's all you're going to be doing with it? So again, one of the first things I said in this call is 10% of the world's population have in some way interacted with the crypto space. I'm more concerned about the 90%. And that's where I want my utility to be. That's what I'm focusing on. Yes, the 10%, it's not that I don't care about the 10%, I absolutely do. But my long-term vision and goal is utility for the 90% who don't know how to get into crypto right now.
Well, and that's obviously a huge slice of pie to be able to go after is, 90% of the world's population. That's a lot of people. So many
It's
people
going,
that might be listening
sorry.
to here and listening to the AMA, and it's their first time of ever hearing about Voice Token. I've put here in the Discord chat, your website and things like that. Where's the
Sure.
best place for somebody to learn more about Voice Token and just about yourself and about all the entire ecosystem? Where's the best place to go to and to keep up?
Well, the first thing I would say to anybody is have a look at the white paper. It's not exhaustively long. I try to keep it as light as possible, but there's some good information inside there. But secondly, if you're not into reading 4, 5, 6 page documents, that's okay. Come over to the Telegram group, which is at Voice Token, and I'm there literally all day, every day, along with the whole team of administrators and moderators. And you'll see our COO is there as well, Paul Clancy. Our CMO, Brendan O'Regan, will be there. So the core team will always be there to answer questions. And I don't have any particular problem with anyone private messaging me either. That's not a problem. People have questions that they don't necessarily want to put on the public group. You can DM me privately, and I will get to the message and I will answer the questions. We have a huge amount of pinned messages on our Telegram group, which give you a lot of information about what we do. I generally do a video update as well every Friday, although over Christmas I was a little bit lax on that, if I'm honest. I was probably too busy eating Christmas cake and pudding, but generally I will put a video out every Friday that will just give a kind of a weekly update, just giving people a kind of a 2-3 minute overview of what's happened during the week. And I suppose to keep the positivity within the group, that just because you may not have heard from me for 3 or 4 days doesn't mean that nothing's happened. There's a huge amount happening every single day in terms of the commercialization, the tech development, the partnerships that we're putting together. That's all going on behind the scenes. So come to the Telegram. That's probably the best place. We'll chat away, and we're always there. So
Awesome. And yeah, I can say that their Telegram can be lively and active, and make sure you head over there and introduce yourself. Say you came from the Traderverse Discord, whether you listen to it live or listen to it later as a recording. Introduce yourself and learn a little bit more about the token and about the team and about the cause that they represent, because it's a great cause to be able to help homeless charities. And you've got such a good story that you said, and I think you probably need to underline that story. I ask everybody their origin story whenever I do an AMA. Everybody that comes through, I say, how'd you start? Yours is the most impactful out of all of them to me, and it's such a great reason to try to start up the token that you have, and have the ambition that you have and the transparency that you have. I think that's pretty rare in this space. So everybody, make sure you head over there to Voice Token, the Telegram group, and head over to voicetoken.com to check out the website. But thank you so much for coming in here today. You kind of helped us out, and we had a little spot open, and it's always a pleasure to be able to speak with you.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. And anybody who does listen to the recording later, make sure and check us out. I do appreciate any questions you may have, good, bad, or ugly. Send them our way, and we'll answer them.
Awesome. Well, we will spread this out. We'll also put it on our Twitter, the Traderverse Twitter, and let people be aware of this AMA that happened today. But thank you so much for your time. And with that, I hope you have a great weekend.
Absolutely. Likewise. Many happy returns, folks. Talk soon. Take care.
All right. See y'all later. Peace.
Bye-bye.